today I've got lots of beautiful sounds in store for you. Would you like to travel through the portals of the study today? I have something here that will take us back in time, through political intrigue, celluloid capers, the sublime and the arcane, from Poland to France, from Ireland to Japan, with sea battles, artists, actors, magicians, authors, and queens, as well as alchemy and even some black magic. But don't worry, you're perfectly safe here in the study where it's just you and me. We'll have lots and lots of soothing sounds as we go, with all kinds of things to look at and stories to listen to. So try not to fall asleep too soon, because there will even be some surprise objects. We'll begin with this London Gazette. Wednesday, June 11th, 1794. Admiralty Office, June 10th. Sir Roger Curtis, first captain to the Admiral Earl Howe, arrived this evening with a dispatch from his lordship to Mr. Stevens, of which the following is a copy. Queen Charlotte at sea, June 2nd, 1794. Ushant, east, half north, 140 leagues. Sir, thinking it may not be necessary to make a more particular report of my proceedings with the fleet for the present information of the Lords Commissioners of the Admiralty, I confine my communications chiefly in this dispatch to the occurrences when in presence of the enemy yesterday. Finding on my return off of Brest on the 19th past that the French fleet had a few days before put to sea, and receiving on the same evening advices from Rear Admiral Montague, I deemed it requisite to endeavour to form a junction with the Rear Admiral as soon as possible, and proceeded immediately for the station on which he meant to wait for the return of the Venus. But having gained very credible intelligence on the 21st of the same month, whereby I had reason to suppose the French fleet was then but a few leagues farther to the westward, the course before steered was altered accordingly. On the morning of the 28th, the enemy were discovered far to windward, and partial actions were engaged with them that evening and the next day, weather gauge having been obtained in the progress of the last mentioned day, and the fleet being in a situation for bringing the enemy to close action the first instant. The ships bore up together for the purpose between 7 and 8 o'clock in the morning. The French, their force consisting of 26 ships of the line, opposed to His Majesty's fleet of 25, the Audacious, having parted company with the sternmost ship of the enemy's line, captured in the night of the 28th, waited for the action, and sustained the attack with their customary resolution. In less than an hour after the close action commenced in the centre, the French admiral, engaged by the Queen Charlotte, crowded off, and was followed by most of the ships of his van, in condition to carry sail after him, leaving us about 10 or 12 of his crippled or totally dismasted ships, exclusive of one sunk in the engagement. The Queen Charlotte had then lost her foretopmast, and the maintopmast fell over the side very soon after. Though I shall have, on the subject of these different actions with the enemy, distinguished examples hereafter to report, I presume the determined bravery of the several ranks of officers and ship's companies employed under my authority will have been already sufficiently denoted by the effect of their spirited exertions, and I trust I shall be excused for postponing the more detailed narrative of the other transactions of the fleet thereon, for being communicated at a future opportunity, more especially as my first captain, Sir Roger Curtis, who is charged with this dispatch, will be able to give the further information the Lords Commissioners of the Admiralty may at this time require. It is incumbent on me, nevertheless, now to add that I am greatly indebted to him for his counsels as well as conduct in every branch of my official duties, and I have similar assistance in the late occurrences to acknowledge of my second captain, Sir Andrew Douglas. I am, with great consideration, sir, your most obedient servant, Howe. The glorious 1st of June was the largest and first fleet action of the naval conflict between the Kingdom of Great Britain and the First French Republic during the French Revolutionary Wars, and it was a culmination of a campaign that had traversed the Bay of Biscay over the previous month, during which both sides had captured numerous merchant ships and minor warships, and had engaged in numerous inconclusive fleet actions. The British Channel Fleet under Admiral Lord Howe attempted to prevent the passage of a vital French grain convoy en route from the United States, which was protected by the French Atlantic Fleet commanded by Rear Admiral Villars-Joyeuse. The two forces clashed in the Atlantic Ocean some 400 nautical miles west of the island of Uisant on the 1st of June, 1794. Significantly, Howe defied naval convention by ordering his fleet to turn towards the French, and for each of his vessels to rake and engage his immediate opponent. This unexpected order was not understood by all of his captains, and as a result, this attack did not come off as cleanly as he might have intended. Nonetheless, the French fleet suffered a tactical defeat. Both fleets were left shattered and incapable of further combat, so Howe and Villars returned to their home ports. Despite losing 7 of his ships of the line, Villars had bought enough time for the French grain convoy to reach safety, securing a strategic success if not a tactical one. However, he was forced also to withdraw his battle fleet back to port, leaving the British fleet free to conduct a campaign of blockade for the remainder of the war. Both sides claimed a victory for this action, and the outcome of this battle was seized upon by the press of both nations as a demonstration of the prowess and bravery of their navies, Thus began a great naval age of engagement. Now, this painting, depicting the glorious 1st of June, was done by Philippe Jacques de Loutherbourg, who was famous for his landscapes, naval paintings, but also as being a fan of the occult. He was born in Strasbourg in 1740 and educated at the university there. When he became a painter, he studied in Paris, where his talent developed rapidly and where he soon became a prominent figure in fashionable society. By 1767, he was elected to the French Academy, although below the age required for the rules of the institution. He made his debut with the exhibition of 12 pictures, his landscapes, sea storms, and battles attaining a celebrity above his Paris contemporaries. Riding on his success, he traveled in Switzerland and Germany and Italy, developing his interest in theatre and performance along the way, so much so that he distinguished himself as much by his theatrical mechanical inventions as by his painting, one novel contraption making use of lights behind a canvas representing the moon and stars, and another achieving the appearance of running water by the use of clear blue sheets of metal and gauze, interspersed with silver threads. In 1771, Loutherbourg settled in London, where the most famous actor of the day, David Garrick, paid him £500 a year to design scenery and costumes and to oversee the stage machinery at the Drury Lane Theatre. His stage effects attracted the admiration not just of the general public, but also of other artists, such as Joshua Reynolds. Loutherbourg's scenic effects of nature, such as green trees changing to autumn colors, and the moon rising, lighting the linings of passing clouds, were achieved with colored lantern slides and ingenious lighting of transparencies. Through a combination of art, technology, and performance, Loutherbourg created wondrous theatrical spectacles and a concept of three-dimensional scenery, such as mounds and cottages where before only two-dimensional flat screens provided background and scenes. In 1781, he achieved landmark success with his entertainment spectacle, Aid of Fusicon, Image of Nature, which more than anything demonstrated the originality of his creations and his fascination with the real and imaginary aspects of nature, following on from David Garrick's initial proposal of this concept in the mid-18th century. The Aedis Fusicon was a miniature mechanical theatre with a 7-foot by 3-foot by 10-foot stage, fronted with a curtain and a stage area, placed parallel to an auditorium in his home that seated about 130 people. It was described as displaying various imitations of natural phenomena represented by moving pictures. He used argon lamps to light the stage and stained glass to change colors. This was not so much a theatrical performance as a three-dimensional display of nature's most sublime aspects. At Christmas of that year, he mounted a spectacle at a party in the Egyptian Hall at the Fonthill for William Beckford, promising to present a mysterious something that the eye has not seen or heart of man conceived. The spectacle, the playing with the forces of nature, began to influence his ambitions, and Loutherbourg began attempting more and more fantastical subjects for the Aedus of Fusicon. such as a scene from Paradise Lost by Milton, with Satan arraying his troops on the banks of the fiery lake and the rising of the palace of Pandemonium. The Aedes of Physikon had a short life, however, as the income did not cover the costs, and the audience, now insatiable in their appetite for more, demanded new productions faster than Lothar Borg could create them. He continued to work in the theatre until 1785, and by 1789 Lothar Borg gave up painting in order to pursue an interest in alchemy and the supernatural. When exactly he had made the acquaintance of Count Alessandro di Cagliostro is conjecture, but it was this man who instructed Lothar Borg in and fueled his interest for the occult. These two travelled about together until Cagliostro's occult activities and spectacles led to several arrests, exile, and eventual life imprisonment. Who was Alessandro Cagliostro? Well, Count Alessandro di Cagliostro was the alias of an Italian occulist, Giuseppe or Joseph Balsamo, an Italian adventurer and self-styled magician. Bigger than life, he was a glamorous figure associated with the royal courts of Europe, where he pursued occult arts, including psychic healing, alchemy, and communication with mediums, his reputation lingering for many decades after his death, and even centuries. The story of Cagliostro is shrouded in rumor, propaganda, and mysticism. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe relates in his Italian journey that the identification of the figure Cagliostro with Giuseppe Balsamo was ascertained by a lawyer from Palermo. Cagliostro himself claimed that he had travelled as a child to Medina, Mecca, and Cairo, and upon return to Malta was admitted to the Sovereign Military Order of Malta, with whom he studied alchemy, the Kabbalah, and magic. Giuseppe was born to a poor family in Palermo, Sicily. With his family in a penurious state, his grandfather and uncles made certain that young Giuseppe received a good education. He was taught by a tutor and later became a novice in the Catholic Order of St. John of God, from which he was eventually expelled. It was during this time as a novice that he learned chemistry as well as a series of spiritual rites. In 1764, at 21, he convinced a certain Vincenzo Marano, a wealthy goldsmith, of the existence of a hidden treasure buried several hundred years previously at Mount Pellegrino. Marano must have been quite gullible, believing that Balsamo's knowledge of the occult would be valuable in preventing them from being attacked by the magical creatures who, Balsamo convinced him, guarded the treasure. As the story goes, Balsamo requested 70 pieces of silver from Marano in preparation for the expedition to Mount Pellegrino, and then the inevitable played itself out. When they began digging for the treasure, Balsamo attacked Marano, leaving him bleeding and wondering what had happened to his precocious young friend, believing that he himself had been beaten by a jinn or genie. The next day, Marano went to Balsamo's house and learned that the young man had left the city. Accompanied by 2 accomplices, Balsamo fled the city of Messina, and it is not clear whether he fell into bad company or they had fallen into bad company with him. 1766 found Balsamo on the island of Malta, where he became an auxiliary or donato for the sovereign military order of Malta, the Knights Hospitaller of St. John, as well as a skilled pharmacist. In early 1768, Balsamo tried working as a secretary to the Cardinal Orsini in Rome, but soon became bored, so he began to lead a double life, selling magical Egyptian amulets and engravings pasted on boards and painted over to look like real paintings. Of the many Sicilian expatriates and ex-convicts he met during this period, one introduced him to a 17-year-old girl named Lorenza Serafina Feliziani, known as Serafina, whom he married in 1768. The couple moved in with Lorenza's parents and her brother in the Vicolo delle Cripte, adjacent to the Strada dei Pellegrini. Balsamo's coarse language and the way he incited Lorenza to display her body contrasted sharply with her parents' strict religious beliefs. And after a heated discussion, the young couple left. At this point, Balsamo befriended Aliata, a forger and swindler, who proposed to teach Balsamo how to forge letters, diplomas, and myriad other official documents. Balsamo showed such great talent for forging that Giacomo Casanova later wrote in his autobiography of an encounter in which Cagliostro was able to forge a letter by him, despite being unable to understand it. In return for teaching, Aliata wished to make love to Balsamo's young wife, a request to which Balsamo weirdly acquiesced. The couple then travelled together to London, where Balsamo styled himself with one of several pseudonyms and self-conferred titles, before finally settling on Count Alessandro di Cagliostro, though he was in essence a charlatan and a confidence trickster. He made money by selling everlasting life potions and sinecure pills lavishly wrapped in gold foil, trading on the beliefs that had inspired alchemists for centuries. As Cagliostro traveled throughout Europe, Russia, Poland, Germany, and France, his fame grew to the point that he was even recommended as a physician to Benjamin Franklin during a stay in Paris. It is during this time that he is supposed to have met Comte de Saint-Germain, a fellow confidence trickster of even more obscure background, who dabbled in alchemy, courted royalty, and is purported to have been more than 500 years old, leading to some snarky comments by Voltaire, who had him rightly pegged. Cagliostro had been admitted as a Freemason of the Esperance Lodge, number 289 in Gerrard Street, Soho, London, and in December 1777, Cagliostro and his wife Serafina went abroad, creating the Egyptian rite of the Freemasons and engaging in the diffusion of Freemasonry by opening lodges all over Europe and by introducing the acceptance of women into the community. In 18th century London, Cagliostro and Serafina cut a fine dash. They rode in an ornate gilt coach with expensively liveried servants to wait on them, and their gorgeous clothes glittered with diamonds. When admirers inquired as to the source of his wealth, the Count would tell them that he knew how to turn lead into gold and how to double the size of a diamond. And more, he knew the secret of eternal life. Cagliostro's Egyptian mystique no doubt played upon the history he well knew. The ancient Egyptians were familiar with the process of ore reduction, separating gold and silver from their native matrix by using quicksilver. The oxide that resulted from this process was believed to have magical properties, to be the elixir of life. This led to further experimentation in the field. A school of alchemy grew up in Alexandria, and after the conquest of Egypt in the 7th century, the Arabs continued to research in alchemy. This came with the Moors to Spain, and from the colleges there it spread throughout Europe. The philosopher's stone was the alchemist's holy grail. It could turn metal into gold, and, when dissolved in alcohol, became a drink that conferred eternal youth. Cagliostro was prosecuted in the affair of the diamond necklace, which involved Marie Antoinette and Prince Louis de Rohan. He was held in the Bastille for 9 months, but finally acquitted when no evidence could be found connecting him to the affair. Nonetheless, he was banished from France by order of Louis XVI and departed for England. There he was accused by French expatriate Thévenot de Morande of being Giuseppe Balsamo, which he denied in his published open letter to the English people, forcing a retraction and apology from Morande. Cagliostro left England to visit Rome, where he met 2 people who proved to be spies of the Inquisition. Some accounts say that his wife was the one who initially betrayed him to the Inquisition. On the 27th of December 1789, he was arrested for attempting to found a monastic lodge in Rome and imprisoned in the Castel de Sant'Angelo, Hadrian's tomb. He was tried and originally sentenced to death, but the sentence was later commuted to life imprisonment at the Forte di San Leo, where he died on 26th of August, 1795. Cagliostro's legend lived long after his ignominious death. For one thing, among the things he carried with him on his ill-fated journey to Rome was an alchemistic manuscript called the Most Holy Trinosophia, and it is alleged that he wrote it himself. As we have a look at this marvelous manuscript, it's very artfully done, and you can see in this electronic copy how colorful it is and how neatly written. As in life, Cagliostro's fame had preceded him. In death, it grew to a legendary status. Even Catherine the Great of Russia mentions him in her diaries. And in the 20th century, Georges Méliès, the magician and moving picture pioneer, made a short fantasy film of a magic trick, Le Miroir de Cagliostro, which to date remains lost. It features a face in a reflecting surface. In this trick, Joseph Balsamo communicates with a face in a carafe of water as if it were a crystal ball. There is an oblique mirror under which is a table with flowers that then reveal a woman. This trick with mirrors has been used over the centuries and indeed millennia, as mirrors symbolize doors that open to other worlds, and an alluring use in magic and magical tricks. Alexandre Dumas, author, novelist, and playwright of Three Musketeers fame, used the figure of Cagliostro in several of his novels. His novel Joseph Balsamo and Le Collier de la Reine, Cagliostro claims to be over 3,000 years old and to have known Helen of Troy. Prolific in several genres, Dumas' works have been translated into many languages, and he is one of the most widely read French authors. Dumas actually began his career writing successfully produced plays, numerous magazine articles, and travel books. In the 1840s, Dumas actually founded the Théâtre Historique in Paris. His novel, The Queen's Necklace, or Le Collier de la Reine, was published in 1849 and 1850, immediately following the Revolution of 1848. Loosely based on the affair of the diamond necklace, it is the second in a series of 4 novels focusing on Comte de Cagliostro, presented by Dumas as the man pulling all the strings in the affair. The first chapters of this novel, which feature a dinner hosted by the old Marshal of Richelieu, were inspired by a text by Jean-François de la Harpe called The Prophecy of Cazotte. Jacques Cazotte being the author of what is often seen as the first fantasy novel, The Devil in Love. Count Cagliostro makes predictions for each of the various guests at this dinner party. Among them, La Pérouse, Madame du Barry, Condorcet, and Gustav III of Sweden. He tells of the tragic end that awaits them and the execution of Louis XVI, foreshadowing the tragic plot in which the efforts of the protagonists, including Marie Antoinette, to prove their innocence, are doomed to failure. What exactly is this infamous affair of the diamond necklace, and what can this diamond necklace be that's so valuable and intriguing and has conjured up so many stories? Now here is something that I think you will really like. It's going to introduce this next part of the story. It's in a very special box. Now, I have the absolute pleasure to know JeannieB ASMR, and if you've seen her videos, you know that she has quite an extraordinary collection of jewels that she has shown on one of her videos. She has been collecting for years and has been able to procure even some of the crown jewels from Queen Victoria's crown and have them made into rings. This piece is one that I am sure she will not mind me having borrowed from her. It's extremely valuable, and I actually had to have special guards guarding it when it was delivered here from JeannieB's collection. This box also is commensurate with what's inside. It's no ordinary cardboard box that's been coated with some lovely paper. No, this is actually some glazed canvas from Napoleon's tent from his headquarters at Waterloo. So that is how valuable this object is to the French. Now, the reason it has Napoleon's canvas on it is because some of these jewels once belonged to Josephine de Beauharnais, Napoleon's lover. And as you can see, inside is another box that's going to house these jewels. Now, this box is not your ordinary vinyl or leather. This is actually made from the soft bark of a tree that grows in Martinique. But the tree is now extinct, and legend has it that it was on Josephine's father's estate. It has to be treated for 50 years in a special oil solution so that it becomes soft and nearly impenetrable by water and unstainable by ink. Now I'm going to open this and show you these beautiful jewels from JeannieB's collection. Look at that. Is that not absolutely gorgeous? Do you know what this is? This is, in fact, Marie Antoinette's necklace. That's right. Now, this necklace is very, very special because, as you will hear in our story, the jewels were picked apart and sold on the black market during a big scandal about which we'll hear. JeannieB has tracked them all down and reassembled them to look very similar to the jeweler's original design that I'll show you there. So you can see how well made this is and how very valuable these diamonds are. These are extremely rare white diamonds that were assembled by these two jewelers in Paris. And it was meant to go on Marie Antoinette's neck, and the ribbons fall down her décolleté. And you can see that the large diamonds are there with very, very valuable platinum prongs. So it was really cutting edge work that these jewelers were doing. They spent years assembling the stones for this necklace, and you can see these rivières of smaller diamonds there, and the way these sparkle and shimmer. And from what JeannieB told me, they're certainly not cheap rhinestones that you could get in a coin machine. No, these are the real thing, and you see them here. Now, let's hear about this necklace. The affair of the diamond necklace, or the affaire du collier de la reine, occurred between 1784 and 1785, when Marie Antoinette's reputation, already tarnished by gossip, became further sullied by the false accusation that she had participated in a crime to defraud the crown's jewelers by acquiring a very expensive diamond necklace for which she refused to pay. It all began in 1772 when Louis XV of France decided to have a special gift made for Madame du Barry, one of his mistresses, at the estimated cost of 2 million livres, more than 15 million US dollars. He requested Parisian jewelers Charles-Auguste Baumer and Paul Bassange create a diamond necklace to surpass all others in grandeur. It took these jewelers several years and a great deal of money to assemble a suitable set of diamonds for their creation, which was described as a row of 17 glorious diamonds, a 3-wreathed festoon, encircled by pear-shaped, multiple star-shaped or clustering amorphous pendants around a very large queen of diamonds. Before they had finished, Louis XV had died of smallpox, and his grandson and successor, Louis XVI, banished Madame du Barry from court. Consequently, the jewelers hoped it would be a creation that the new Queen of France, Marie Antoinette, would buy, and indeed in 1778 Louis XVI offered it to her as a present. However, Marie Antoinette refused the gift, famously stating, "We have more need of 74s, which were ships, than of necklaces," though some said that the reason she refused the necklace was because it had been made for Madame du Barry, and she didn't like Madame du Barry. By yet other accounts, Louis himself was the one who changed his mind. The jewelers then decided to try to sell the necklace outside of France, but had no success, so in 1781 they again attempted to sell it to Marie Antoinette after the birth of Louis Joseph, Dauphin of France. But again the queen refused it. Enter a confidence trickster calling herself Jeanne de Valois-Saint-Remy, also known as Jeanne de la Motte. Jeanne hatched a plan whereby she would use the necklace to gain wealth, royal patronage, and the power that would accompany it. By 1785, Jeanne was the mistress of the Cardinal de Rohan, former French ambassador to the court at Austria. Now Marie Antoinette was not happy with him, for not only had he spread rumors about her behavior to her mother, the Empress Maria Theresa of Austria, but he had also written some offensive letters about Maria Theresa herself. This gossipy cardinal realized that to become the king's minister, he would have to regain the queen's favor. Seeing an opportunity, Jeanne de la Motte persuaded Cardinal Rohan that she stood in good stead with Marie Antoinette, and she assured the cardinal that she would make an effort on his behalf. Thus began an alleged correspondence between Rohan and the queen, mediated by Jeanne de la Motte. As the tone of the letters became amorous, the cardinal became convinced that Marie Antoinette was in love with him, and he himself began to be in love with her. He begged Jeanne to arrange a secret rendezvous with the queen, and in August 1784, in the gardens of the Palace of Versailles, the cardinal met with this woman, whom he believed to be Marie Antoinette, and offered her a rose as a love token. In fact, the woman was a prostitute whom Jeanne had hired because she resembled the queen. This phony queen promised that she would forget their past disagreements. Jeanne de la Motte then took advantage of the besotted cardinal, borrowing large sums of money from him in the guise of the Queen's charities. As her wealth accumulated, she began to boast publicly about her relationship with the Queen, whose affair with Rohan many now believed was actually genuine. So you see how rumors spread. It doesn't even need tabloid newspapers. These jewelers, Baumer and Bassange, were watching too, and they saw an opportunity to recoup their loss on the necklace they had made. They approached Jeanne, who was persuaded to help them and accept a commission. Jeanne, pretending to be the Queen, sent several letters to the cardinal, including an order to buy the necklace, which she implored him to do on her behalf, as she did not want it to be made public. These letters were signed Marie Antoinette de France, a detail the besotted cardinal missed, for a sovereign always signs with their given name only. Rohan negotiated the purchase of the necklace for 2 million livres, to be paid in installments. He claimed to have the Queen's authorization for the purchase, and showed the jewelers the conditions of the bargain in the Queen's handwritten letter. Rohan then took the necklace to Jeanne's house, where a man, whom Rohan believed to be the Queen's valet, came to fetch it. The diamond necklace was there and then disassembled by Jeanne's husband and another accomplice, and the stones later sold on the black market in London. When Jeanne de la Motte presented the cardinal's notes as payment, they were insufficient, so Baumer complained to the Queen. Marie Antoinette told him that she had neither ordered the necklace nor had she received it. Then the full story came out. On 15th of August 1785, the court was assembled and awaiting the king and queen to go to the chapel for a religious feast day. Cardinal Rohan, who was to officiate, was arrested in the Hall of Mirrors, taken before the king, the queen, the minister of the court, and the keeper of the seals to explain himself, producing the forged letters. It was the blatantly false signature on these letters that lynched him, for everyone could see that it was not the Queen's signature. Rohan was arrested and taken to the Bastille. On the way, he sent a note ordering the destruction of his correspondence. 3 days later, Jeanne was arrested, but she had already destroyed the letters. Alessandro Cagliostro, his reputation now larger than life, was also arrested, although it is now doubtful whether he had played any part in the affair. A sensational trial resulted in the acquittal of the cardinal and Cagliostro on the 31st of May, 1786. Jeanne de la Motte was condemned to whipping, branding with a V for voleuse or thief on each shoulder, and sent to life imprisonment in the prostitutes' prison, Salpêtrière. In June the following year, she escaped from prison disguised as a boy. Public opinion was much excited by the trial, even though the Paris Parliament did not comment on the alleged actions of the Queen, who was found blameless in the matter, and Rohan, an innocent dupe. The La Mottes were recognized as deceivers for their own ends. The historical significance of this affair is one of many that led to the French disillusionment with the monarchy, being one of the contemporary scandals that gave moral weight and popular support for the French Revolution. Stolen diamonds, court intrigues, and popular opinion influenced many stories, and Maurice Marie-Émile Leblanc, a French novelist and writer, who is known primarily as the creator of the fictional gentleman thief and detective Arsène Lupin cashed in on this mania. Arsène Lupin is often described as a French counterpart to Arthur Conan Doyle's creation Sherlock Holmes, who appeared in serialized stories in the magazine Je sais tout, starting in 1905 and lasting into the 1930s. He created Josephine Balsamo, aka Countess Cagliostro, to be Arsène Lupin's most known antagonist. In his stories, Josephine Balsamo claims to be Josephine Pellegrini, born 29th of July 1788 in Palermo, from the notorious Joseph Balsamo, or Alessandro Cagliostro, and Josephine Tachère de la Pagerie, the maiden name of Josephine de Beauharnais, the future wife of Napoleon Bonaparte. Josephine has somehow achieved eternal youth. Lupin, however, theorizes that this may be nothing more than a ruse, and that she is actually the granddaughter of the first Josephine Balsamo, who might not be related to Joseph Balsamo at all. The backstory has it that when Lupin was 20 years old, in 1894, he met and became the lover of Josephine, who was already aware of his reputation. From her, young Lupin learned the 4 secrets of Queen Marie Antoinette and Cagliostro: Alcor, or the 7-armed candlestick, the hollow needle, the godstone of the King of Bohemia, and In Robore Fortuna. The enduring magnetism of the figure of a gentleman thief such as Arsène Lupin and the evil adversary Count Cagliostro were a subject of some Japanese animation, and Hayao Miyazaki did the animation for Lupin and the Castle of Cagliostro, which, like all Miyazaki films, are a pleasure to watch and very beautiful to look at. Lupin III, the great-grandson of Arsène Lupin, was also a character in a Japanese anime series from the late 60s into the 80s. So, my friends, I hope you enjoyed this journey through the portals of the study. I hope you found it relaxing and informative, imaginative, and fun. Now, I'm going to make a cup of tea and write some more letters, and shall I send that back to JeannieB? No, I think I'll keep it. Be good to yourself, my friend. Be kind to others, and as always, be extraordinary.